This is Karen from newclevelandradio.net, and welcome to the launch of On the Lot with our host, Matt Jackson. On the Lot will share stories of diversity and specifically in the LGBTQ community. This is our opportunity to voice our thoughts, our ideas as being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer, or having someone who is part of this community in our family and as our friends. The numbers are varied across the board as to how many people belong to this community. But I don't think it makes any difference, because no matter what the percentage is, we must listen to the voices and understand a new language. We are proud to be working with Matt Jackson. And Matt Jackson, this is On the Lot. Welcome.
Karen, thank you so much for having me be a part of your world. Thank you for the introduction to this new segment. And David, thank you for being our first guest on this new special podcast. I'm just going to give a little bit of background on myself to the listeners. I have been a creative in the Los Angeles area for the last 20 years. I have been out my entire life in LA. I have been proud to be gay. I have been proud to stand up for what I believe in. Throughout my life, there was some shame involved with who I was becoming as a man. But I can tell you that I am proud of who I am, and I celebrate diversity, and I celebrate differences. And at the end of the day, I have learned we're all so humanly the same, that we all care about basic needs and love truly is love. I am working in LA right now at a production company called All Roads Lead. All Roads Lead, our goal is to celebrate diversity and storytelling for television. And I also have an On the Lot coaching company for youth. And what I do is I coach young actors, aspiring actors, kids who think that being in the TV and film industry is fun. And I help them to celebrate exactly who they are. I help them to celebrate their imagination, and I give them opportunity to feel rewarded. And some of those stories, Karen, we're going to be very excited to have on the show.
I can't wait.
What we're doing is we're talking to the youth of America, and we're asking them about their stories, not only with their creativity, but also their stories of quarantine. And these stories are fascinating. I can tell you, David and Karen, that if we were living in our youth and stuck in our house and we would not be able to go outside and play, we would feel incredibly trapped. But these kids of today are so technically savvy that their fingertips are already to the computer. So they have a lot of wherewithal, and they have a lot of stories to share with us. So on that note, I want to share David's story. David, thank you for being here. We are excited to learn from you. And so tell us a little bit about your journey, your background, and maybe some hopes and wishes for the future.
Oh, well, I grew up in the Bay Area and always dreamed about going to Hollywood. In fact, I had this little black and white Hollywood sign above my door as I would leave the bedroom. And I'd say, one of these days, I'm going to get there. And I graduated from college. I was in plays and commercials and got my SAG card in San Francisco. And finally, when I hit the glorious age of 30, although I'm all 31 now, which was probably, 20, I don't know how many years ago. Anyway, I finally got out to LA. And when I got to LA, I transferred, of course, you had to get the place to live. You had to get, the acting class that you were going to take, and of course a job. You had to get the job. So I transferred luckily over from Burlingame. I was at Bobby McGee's, a singing character waiter, and
Wow.
yeah, it was fun. It kept me sane, and because I got to perform, which I love to do. And then when I did get to LA and was waiting tables, I met this glorious woman, Mary Rings. And we used to go up to the tables and sing to the tables and do duets. And she said, come to my acting class. I have an acting class. So took me a couple months to get there, but then I opened the door of this Saturday acting class, and there in front of me were 30 actors who happen to have Down syndrome. And I just fell in love. I was with them for, 10 years. And I'm still part of the family there, and then have created my own workshops, which is Meet the Biz. I finally named it a couple years after I started, which is bringing all actors together. Gay, straight, able-bodied, disabled-bodied, everybody working together and stretching each other, because we're all in this land of Hollywood, and I'm just all about, let's all get together. We're all one big family, especially if we look at it that way. And
Yeah.
connected to my favorite word of love.
Yeah. Well, my nephew was actually born Down syndrome.
Oh.
And so just on that note, we have a parallel world there, which, as you know, David, they are the most loving and creative people. And when we talk about diversity and acceptance, I actually, in my heart, I talk about that across platforms of ethnicity, platforms of sexual orientation, platforms of being different, and where at the end of the day, people really are seeking just love and acceptance. So that's absolutely wonderful. Is there a theater company that's still around for the class for the Down syndrome actors?
Oh, yeah. That is, there's several that are out there, which is this amazing community. The one that I started with was Born to Act Players, and we have a website, borntoactplayers.com, and the creator, the head of that, is Mary Rings. There's also Inclusion Films with Joey Travolta, which is John's older brother. There is Actors for Autism for Alyssa Wolf. And the one that I work at now is Performing Arts Studio West. We have over 100 students, and it's all different kinds of disabilities. And, I'm saying disability, and that is the technical term, I guess. I think of it more of, we all have different abilities.
Yeah. I think the terminology changes, right? And it's sometimes hard to keep up with the terminology. We always want to say the right thing. And especially on our radio show like this, with our listeners, we want to make sure we're saying the proper words, but it's hard to keep up with all of the words and the stigmas that are associated with different groups. Karen knows that as I was building my slate of content at the production company, we encounter a lot of people who are different. And I was telling Karen and to our listeners, there is sometimes a plus factor of difference. It's not just there's one thing different about me, but there's sometimes a plus factor of difference that goes with some people.
Yeah.
And so it's important to celebrate those differences, but getting the terms right is difficult. My point being that there is a new terminology for words, even just like we're talking about today, gay and lesbian, and now there's a queer terminology that is becoming more of a forefront word, which used to be kind of a taboo word back in the day. And now the millennials, the younger generation, are really embracing this word queer. And even for me, it is still in, you know, my mid 40s, it's still hard to hear this word and to think of it in a positive way. But I'm wrapping my head around it because it actually is a celebration of, I'll give you an example. There is like a kind of a open relationship between a guy and a girl, and they're both a little fluid in nature, which means they like men and women, but they are getting married and they consider themselves queer. So that, I guess that kind of stamp says we are just human beings and we are more open and fluid, which is queer. Right. So, you know, I'm learning the terminology, and the terminology for somebody who lives in Los Angeles is tricky. I can't imagine living, you know, in a smaller town and trying to grapple with all of these issues, and not to bring politics into play, but, you know, we have one side of the debate that's saying, let's celebrate diversity and people that are different. But if you are far removed, like I was saying, in a smaller town, and I won't say where, but in a smaller town, then it's hard to understand what we're talking about politically, because you're like, I'm removed from that. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Even me in LA, I go, I'm not sure I know it, but it's our job. It's our job to just, again, back to what you said, David, it's our job to love each other and support each other. And if anything, we're supposed to keep growing.
Right.
We're supposed to keep learning.
You know, it's interesting, Matt, because I went to high school in Minneapolis. The first time I'm telling you anything about Minnesota. And in high school, if somebody was just odd, we would use the word queer. Queer was like a geek today, okay? And so when I was putting all this together this past weekend, I was thinking about how terminology has changed, and we need to understand it, and it's okay if we make a mistake if somebody wants to nicely explain it to us. So this morning I was talking to a person on the phone, and the person was born female, but she's, well, I guess I can't use the word she because of pronouns, but is considered, is a binary, where non-binary, okay. And I kept using the wrong pronouns, but this person was so nice in taking me back a step and explaining. And I said, it's going to take me a while. I'm 70 years old. I'm not going to remember all these words today, but I certainly want to try.
Yeah, there are a lot of words. And where are you, did you go, where are you from in Minnesota?
So I'm originally from Detroit, but we lived in Minneapolis for 4 years when I went to high school.
Okay, so did we talk about this already?
No.
Okay, so I went to high school. Okay, you're surprising me on purpose, but I'm from Hopkins, Minnesota.
And my father worked in Hopkins. Yeah, I was in St. Louis Park.
Okay, well, my dad's from St. Louis Park, so it's a. So, you know, you and I can.
You're going to find out you're related.
Yeah.
Well, we might be. But it's actually a good example, because whether it's Minnesota or otherwise, there are differences in attitudes on the coasts than there are in the Midwest.
Right.
However, I have to say, without placing judgment on anybody, there are certain states that have really grown to adapt to the times. And Minneapolis is probably one of those places
absolutely.
Done an exceptional job of celebrating diversity amongst all walks of life. So just have to give them a shout out for that.
You know, you were talking about the word queer and all that, and the way you describe. See, I'm still like grasping some of these different terminologies and what they are, but I heard that word and I'm going, oh, you know, because I go through this thing about defining myself, and sometimes it's so, what are you? Who are you? And, you know, sometimes it's put in front of people. It's like, well, what do you mean? You know, you're gay, you're straight, you're this or that, you know, and I have a dear friend, Kathy Buckley, who is considered the top, one of the top comedians, I think one of the top deaf comedians, if not the number one in the world. That being said, her main thing is no labels. It's like, why put the box around us if we're all in our little boxes? And at the same time, when I talk to her, we all talk about, well, yes, I'm in the hard of hearing community. I'm, and then there's the autism and cerebral palsy and this and that, and I'm all about, hey, coming together, bring it all together and learning from each other. And like you said earlier too, we have the ands. We have, well, I'm this and I'm that and I'm this, and one of the classes I teach is being in the breath, in the moment. And right now, I used to take from Corey Allen, who played Buzz in Rebel Without a Cause, the one who went off the cliff.
These are legends.
Oh my God, he was like the grandfather I never met. And then he went on to direct shows like Star Trek: The Next Generation and so many other shows. But one of the things he started class off with was the question, what do you want the most at this moment in your life? And the thing is this, right now I might want a hot fudge sundae, but in 3 minutes from now, it might have changed to, I want to get laid or something like that, So it's quite interesting. Life.
Well, we're all multifaceted people, and that's what we have to remember, is that it is okay to lead with different parts of yourself. I do think that if you have Down syndrome, or if you are in a wheelchair, or whatever it is that makes you different, sometimes you seek those types of people in order to feel included. And inclusion is so important. So sometimes if you lead with your difference in order to feel like you belong to a group, that is incredibly important. And I think probably you, David, and also you, Karen, I have never led and walked through my life leading with my sexual orientation. And I don't think Karen's walking around going, I'm a straight woman. No. And David, I don't think you're walking around going, I'm a gay man. I have led my entire life by being human. And should I find people who are gay, and I also like their heart, or I trust their spirit, then I become friends with those people. But I have actually never led with just, I need to be a part of a walking group of people that are also gay. I have not. Now, some people who are from, let's just say, smaller towns, who come to Los Angeles or go to New York, and perhaps their families were not very supportive, they cling to their group in order for acceptance and belonging. And that's okay, but I would hope that that doesn't have to happen anymore out of fear, and that actually the world is a place where we can all be in our box, but also, come out of our box and play with everybody in the sandbox. And I think TV programming is able to help that. There's so many shows we've talked about that have set the examples for us. And we do have gay characters now on a lot of different TV shows. And we have even diverse gay characters on TV shows. Yeah. And so I think that the trickle-down effect of what's happening on TV is allowing our younger people to feel smarter and more accepting. And Karen, I do think that this podcast is going to be great, because I do think that we're not behind the times, but rather we're in a movement. We're in a movement, and it's going to get better. We say it's going to get better, but I do think that our younger generations are more accepting of differences,
Yeah. Well, and what you said too about the movement, I think it's so important right now that you have the show, and thank you for allowing me to be on this first show of yours, because I'm learning as well, and in this moment, of how important this is. I mean, we're at that crucial stage of you have this change that's going on. And I really feel that this is the change that people have been talking about for years, about something's going to happen where everything's shifting. And this is it. And I think I really feel this show that you have created now is going to open doors and minds and hearts.
Well, after meeting the two of you last week, and it was just coincidental that I met David on Janet Galen's Love Letters Live, and then I met Matt on The Rant with Barbara Rose Brooker. What I heard mostly was, we believe in diversity. We believe in inclusion. And as I wrote to you about this, David, having a son on the autism spectrum who's very high functioning, but he's been labeled for many years, he just couldn't succeed. And when he did, people would applaud and say, "Oh, good boy." And it wasn't, "Oh, good boy." It's, I'm capable. And it's taken him a long time to get to that point. And because of him, I've been more open to other people and say, "Hey, I don't care if you have red hair, blue hair. It doesn't make any difference. Be part of this group. There's something special about each of us."
Mm.
Growing up, my parents always said my brothers were smarter than me. My brothers could do much more than me, and I should just marry a nice Jewish doctor. Didn't happen, guys. But it took a long time for my parents to look at me and go, "Hey, you're a smart girl."
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start looking at everyone like that. You are smart enough. You can do it.
Yeah, I think the support of who you were born to be needs to start in childhood. So many of us walk through our childhood kind of in zombie land, a little bit lost. It really depends on your parenting. But some of us have parents that really encouraged us on our path, and others, like yours, Karen, we're kind of like, we're not sure what's going to happen. But I really do think that if we can celebrate early childhood development amongst what kids are supposed to be doing, amongst their sexual orientation, etc., I think that we have stronger leaders. And of course, that goes back to Oprah and some of our leaders Deepak Chopra, who celebrate, be exactly who you're supposed to be. I am not saying that I am of that level, but I do think that it's important to understand that we celebrate who we are from the get-go. And I just have a simple example of that. But when I teach my acting classes to kids, we always start them with like fun commercials. They're upbeat and they're fun. And we just kind of like pretend that they're all on TV doing commercials. And there's always going to be that, 16-year-old girl who's got the beautiful hair and she's gorgeous. And I ask the class, who in this classroom is going to get the shampoo commercial, right? But I ask that because they go, "Oh, she is." And I say that in a way because it's so important to become self-aware, right? And then I go, who in this class would get the Pringles commercial? And they go, "Oh, he would because he's funny," right? And so you start to understand that go down the path you're supposed to be going down, right? Don't go into like what you were saying, David. Don't jump into somebody else's box. Be on your path, know your path, support your path, and start to recognize it early. Now, the shampoo commercial, the Pringles commercial, they're silly, but you understand the point.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and allow yourself to know that you have the ability to do many different things. You could be, see, this is how out of the box I am, because I'm so there with you about, okay, yes, the girl. When you said who would get the shampoo commercial, I would say, well, maybe the bald guy, because he needs the growing shampoo. So
well, I should have been clear. I was referring to like a Pantene commercial.
Okay, Pantene. There you go.
The flowing hair. Yeah.
By the way, I have to find out where you teach classes, because I know I have a few people who would love to check them out.
Oh, well, I would love to email you and just send you my information.
I love it. I love it.
David, what are you working on now? How has everything with like politics, Black Lives Matter, looting, rioting, how has it all affected you? Like, where are your thoughts today? You know, obviously so much is happening that your thoughts maybe 6 months ago have changed so much to today because it's all happened so fast.
Every day you wake up and you are afraid to turn on the news. And I've told myself 30 minutes of news a day, max, because otherwise I'll go crazy. And thank God, I mean, today on Meet the Biz, we have a meditation. And we bring in different people, and this wonderful guy, Philip Shard, guides us through a meditation, and we do an interview with him. So I really do a lot of meditation, and I started that last year. It's interesting how things, beforehand get you prepared, or possibly get you prepared for what's going to happen, or what's happening. In regards to all the upheaval and what's going on right now with the government and Black Lives Matter, and I mean, I would love to just jump out that door and start protesting and protesting in a positive way that we are equal. Black Lives Matter. We have to get out there and stand for who we are and what we need and what we need to survive. It's like with a new Supreme Court, it's like it's so scary with all the rights possibly being taken away from women, from gay and lesbian community. And it's like, we have to stand up. Now, for me, 6 years ago, a week before my 50th birthday, I had a massive heart attack. I know, it's like you wouldn't expect that. But so I am one of those people during this wonderful time of masks and pandemic are a little scared of getting too out there. So I have to do different things in my own way to, I don't want to say protest. I want to, I go through those moments. As, damn it, we've got to do this. We've got to get through. We've got to survive. We've got to succeed. But then the other thing is through love. Now, does it mean we're like, yes, we love you? We have to be powerful in our love. One of the things that I do with my interviews that I do through the classes is about acknowledging where we are, but also finding the joy that we are in this moment. Because if we don't find that also the joy of living, the joy of self-acceptance, and learning, then we can be lost in this crazy tornado of a time. And we have to be sure we know who we are, or at least stay with our core.
I would love it for our listeners who don't know this, but I'm not sure if you wrote it or you produced it, but the film Honey Bunny.
Did you see it?
Yes. And it's beautiful because we're talking about acceptance and diversity, and we're talking about how it intermingles with disability and Down syndrome and Black, white, Asian, trans, whatever. But you told the story of a Down syndrome couple and a romantic relationship. I want to know about that.
Well, I've known Blair, who is the lead in the film, in the documentary, for years. I think almost 25 years now. I've been on the set with him as a coach. We're good friends. I met him through Born to Act Players. And for years now, Performing Arts Studio West and Meet the Biz has introduced every year, have the opening meet and greet for the Disability Film Challenge led by Nick Navicki. And I've always helped out, whether it's casting, because I used to be, and I still am at times, a casting director. And I would help in different ways. Well, this year I said, they're doing a documentary. And I have some old footage of myself and Blair and his girlfriend, Susie. And I thought, that, you go to your heart, what do I want to do? Because I'm also working on a full-length documentary called My Next Breath, which is about inclusion. But something told me Blair and Susie. So I called up Gail Williamson and I said, I'm really thinking of being a part of this film challenge this year, and I'd love to do a short film on Blair. And she said, well, this other amazing director has footage on him as well. And why don't you collaborate? So I got together with the Burials, and the Henry, the father, is an editor. We have Jaden, who is, I think he's 14 now. And he is the director. And he had footage, I had footage, and then we made it into a film that connected with today. And what you were saying about the diversity and love is I wanted this film to really show people love, and it has no boundaries. And we all are, I want people to watch this film and say, oh my God, this reminds me of me. And then they realize, wait a minute, they're Down syndrome, and wait, does it matter? That kind of thing. It's again, yes, we have our differences and our similarities, but we also have that common ground of love.
And more importantly, I think that everybody is allowed love.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. And we have our ups and downs. The story has very subtle, it shows how as people get older, and especially in the Down syndrome community, what is it when you get older and you're not as focused? Right,
like dementia?
What?
Like dementia or something?
Yeah, like dementia, or I believe they get it at a more of a quicker rate. So it subtly shows that as well. But what I wanted to create is a film that didn't say, hey, I'm Down syndrome and this and this and this. Nothing's wrong with that. I wanted to create a film everybody could see. And I would go to that film once it was finished, and I'd watch it a couple of times a day, and it would completely take me away from the craziness that we're all going through now. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think I achieved on that.
Yeah. Karen, as you do all your different shows, I know that there are common threads for you,
right,
on what everybody is kind of wanting to march towards. If there was one underlying theme that people are frustrated about, what do you think it is?
That people don't know how to communicate. And it's one of the main reasons I started this type of podcasting. Typically, a podcaster has one show and that's it. I started out saying I wanted a variety of different voices, not just mine. There's a lot of things I need to be aware of that I'm not. And there are times that I feel very guilty that I think certain things. I haven't seen your movie yet, but I'm going to watch it now that we just talked about, David. But sometimes I'll watch a movie like that and I'll get angry. Why does it have to be two Down syndrome people falling in love? Why can't it be a Down syndrome person and a typical person? Because that has happened and it should happen. And so I want that information out there, that we have to become more aware. We have to be honest with each other. I don't have to like what somebody else does, but it's not for me to criticize them.
Right.
And it's about time we stop the criticism.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that about the differences. Like, it doesn't have to be two Down syndrome. It was just happened. I thought of Blair, and his girlfriend happens to also have Down syndrome. So that's where it took me. But I know many different couples who are different abilities
Right.
that are connected, whether it's autistic and non-autistic, whether it's cerebral, you know. And again, I'm putting the labels now, but ultimately it's like here is Andy, and here is John, or here's Angela and Dustin, and you know, or something like that.
Well, it's
Not just
interesting
throwing out names.
because we briefly talked about Joey Travolta and his one movie documentary they put together, Normal People Scare Me Too. My son was asked if they could use some of his music in it, and we had no idea what it was going to be about. It was excellent. The only thing we asked about was why weren't there more high functioning autistic individuals in it to show the whole syndrome? And we know, you know, Joey got the people they got together, and that's how it turned out.
Yeah.
But there are times that I just want to stretch it and say, look at, you know, not all Down syndrome people look alike, act alike, talk alike, think alike. So let's see that variety. And you guys are doing a great job getting that out there.
Well, you should check too. I mean, I afterwards, I'm going to give you a list of people that you might be interested in having on your show, like Andy Arias, who has his own podcast, but he's very strong in the. He just came back from Washington, D.C. for many years working in the government, but he also is very strong in the LGBT community. And he also happens to have cerebral palsy. So there's these people like this that are amazing that I'll talk to you later about. And then if you want to talk about, you know, the people with diversity in the schools, like Performing Arts Studio West, John Paces created this amazing school years ago. And we have, you know, the level. And when I teach a class, whoever it is, I go right to each person, and, you know, I'm not teaching a disability. I'm not teaching a sexuality. I'm teaching acting and being, and I'm connecting with that person. We just go that way, and to show that everybody has that ability to get to that next place.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point. I think that's going to become a hot topic in years to come, is that ability. People have ability, right? Everybody has different varying degrees of ability. And we have seen people who have a certain ability in sports get a certain trophy. People who have a certain ability in film and TV get a certain trophy. And people have climbed that rung so that the cream rises to the top, so to speak, in all of those different industries. So I still think that even though we're celebrating diversity, and even though we're still giving everybody a chance, I do still believe in talent, and I still do believe that if you put in the work, if you study your craft or your sport or whatever it is, and you become excellent, you should still be rewarded for your work.
Yep.
And so I think it's going to be a hot topic coming up, because mixed with your talent is diversity quotas and disability quotas, all the stuff that we on this call believe in, right? Yeah. But it gets to be a little bit confusing.
Yes,
and a little bit heavy at times.
Yes, yeah. You know, and some of the things that we were saying over this last little while brings me to somebody that I grew up loving and who I met and was one of the most amazing people, because you grow up and you're a fan of someone, and you hope that if you ever do meet them, they you know, they turn out to
sparkle, but they sparkle.
They sparkle. Well, I met Lily Tomlin. And we actually, we were in the same show together for a friend's party, and it was you know, the money was going to a good cause, and I actually sang a song, and right after Lily performed, and I was standing there and was, you know, there's still a few people in this industry, I go, you know, just a few. Now I'm just like, you know, we're all people, you know, so, but I saw Lily, and this was, I think, 7 years ago. And I saw her afterwards, and I tapped her on the shoulder. I want to tell you, you have given me so much joy throughout my life. And she said, "Oh my God, you were wonderful." And she kissed me on the lips. And I was like, oh my God, it was great. And the thing about her too is, and I don't think, one way or the other about sexuality or this, that, or the other, she didn't really, as I recall, come out of the closet. She was in a relationship, for 40, 50 years? I don't know how long it's been. And she just lived her life. And she didn't deny anything, but she just lived her life. So I don't feel there's a right or a wrong to say, this is what I am. It's like you could say, this is what I am. That kind of energy. You know what I'm saying? And I think hers was more that this is who I am. And then when she did, when she was asked at a certain later time, it was like, it was a smooth coming out, it might have, it could have helped at an earlier time or maybe not. So I respect her for that, for going with how she felt with her journey.
Yeah, and an interesting topic which I haven't seen the program yet, but I've read the play, and I'm excited to watch Boys in the Band on Netflix, because this is an example of a program where I think every single actor is gay, and every single actor is playing a gay character. And obviously the play was written a while back. They did the show to huge reviews and huge success on Broadway. And now it's a Netflix series produced by Ryan Murphy. And it's getting a bunch of reviews, positive and negative. But it's about a certain time. It's about a certain time when gay men were existing and acting a certain way.
Did you see the original movie?
I saw the original movie and I've read the play.
Yeah.
So I am excited to now see this new project, because this is an example of good programming that, for those of our friends who live in smaller communities, it's still a good show. It's good programming. It's a way for it to get into the mainstream, and to be able to celebrate all these gay voices playing gay characters. I think it's very interesting. Yeah. And it's just another way. It's another way in. Right?
Well, and you mentioned Ryan Murphy, and I just think he's amazing. I worked on one of his shows for a week. In fact, with Blair Williamson. I went on as a coach on the set, but Blair was, he got so many different roles and such amazing, but on Nip Tuck, he was on that, and there was Ryan. So connecting the inclusion and the diversity, of course, LGBT, and then he always brings in diversity as in with Down syndrome or differences. Doesn't, so that's what I love about what he does.
Yeah, so we're definitely going on the path, right? We're going on the path. And I think a program like this allows us to just talk about it, So Karen, thank you for creating it, because it allows us to, instead of just be watching and sitting by, but we're allowing different people to be participants with us.
Absolutely. And I know you've reached out to quite a few. I overwhelmed you last week when I put out this little notice that we were looking for people, and my email is so full that I know this is exactly what we need. Just to give you a little preview of it, I have somebody who contacted me who is blind and deaf and gay. And her story is just so overwhelming, that people look at her as being dumb. She has 2 PhDs.
Yeah.
So, I sat here crying as I read this, and I thought, this is the perfect time, because we're ready to talk and we're ready to listen. And
absolutely. Karen, how are the listeners reaching out to you?
So what I've put is I've asking them to write us at newclevelandradio@gmail.com.
Okay, great.
Then I can send off the information to you. If their story has something to do with, something that is a crossover with one of our other shows, they may be on one of the other shows as well. What we want to do is give people a voice, have an opportunity, and let's all face our challenges together. And we all have challenges.
Yes. And part of the reason, listeners, that this show is called On the Lot is because usually being on the lot in Hollywood means that you're a working actor, writer, set designer, hair and makeup artist. And on the lot is always a microcosm of the real world. And so we want to bring the microcosm that's on the lot and the acceptance and the camaraderie amongst people from all walks of life who are achieving a similar goal to the bigger picture. And so we're taking the microcosm of On the Lot into the big world so we can all kumbaya, so to speak, together. So listeners, you can also reach out to me if you'd like. I just have one place to find me, and that's just Matt Jackson at Facebook. And that's just an easy place. So,
well, we'll make sure that we put that also in the description of today's show. And David, you're amazing. 2 weeks in a row, I get to talk to you.
Oh my God.
I love this.
Well, I love what you're doing, what you're both doing. And I'm so grateful to have met new friends.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, David. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll shoot you an email as well so that we can collaborate on some of the other stuff to keep moving.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's a great kumbaya. Again, thank you, Matt, for On the Lot. And we will be back again next week. Have a good day.
Sounds great.